It's the quote where the sources have said that he secretly hoped William would struggle so he would pick up the phone and call him back and ask.
Prince William was only moments away from opening one of the most sensitive Crown Council meetings of his life when a familiar face appeared beyond the chamber door. The prince stopped walking, stared through the narrow glass panel, and recognized a man closely connected to Harry. What happened next stunned every official waiting inside. William cancelled the meeting, ordered the room sealed, and demanded to know who had allowed that visitor into the restricted corridor. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William tightened his grip on the briefing folder as Oliver Grant waited outside. The Crown Council was a private gathering where the monarch and advisors discussed royal responsibilities, security, residences, and the family's future. That morning at St. James's Palace, an official royal residence used for ceremonial business, Charles had joined senior advisors to consider Harry's connection to the institution. The king understood that any decision could affect public confidence and his wounded family. No one entered that corridor by accident. Officials approved every name, collected personal devices, and stopped even aides from approaching the chamber without permission. Oliver, a fictional confidant who remained close to Harry after his departure from duties, should never have crossed the first checkpoint. Yet Grant stood steps from the door, calm enough to make the silence feel dangerous. William looked at him and felt something deeper than suspicion. He felt betrayed. The Prince of Wales, the title held by the heir, expected to become the next monarch, had entered prepared to defend the crown, but Harry's friend dragged an old family wound into that room. Oliver said nothing. Grant held William's stare, as if expecting this confrontation. William stepped inside, placed the folder on the table, and refused his chair. "The meeting is cancelled," he declared. Charles looked up in shock, while the future king ordered the chamber sealed until someone explained how Oliver had reached the floor. The monarch asked whether Grant had threatened anyone. William answered that the greater threat was whoever had opened the way. A security officer approached and lowered his voice. Oliver had entered using visitor clearance connected to the office of someone inside the chamber. The officer showed William the authorization record, expecting anger. Instead, the prince became still. The pass had been approved before dawn, hours before household officials knew the council would gather. The cancellation stunned everyone, but its wound was personal. William now had to decide whether Oliver represented a threat, a warning, or one final message from Harry, and that answer would force him to confront why his brother's friend was waiting there. Behind William's sudden order lay years of damaged trust, unfinished conversations, and private grief. Oliver Grant was not merely an unexpected visitor. He was a living connection to the brother William could no longer reach without lawyers, advisors, and old resentment standing between them. As officials waited in silence, the prince looked toward the corridor, and for one brief moment, his fury gave way to something more painful: fear that Harry had sent him. William carried the pressure of a future king, knowing one careless decision could damage both his family and public trust in the monarchy. He considered the council chamber protected ground, a place where constitutional planning, the careful preparation of royal duties and responsibilities, had to remain separate from personal conflict. Yet Harry's pain had now reached its door, and the future monarch could no longer pretend those two worlds were separate. Oliver had known the brothers during warmer years. Grant had stood beside Harry at private gatherings, when laughter came easily, and neither man imagined communicating through advisors. He remained close after the Duke stepped away from royal duties. Duke was the noble title Harry retained even after leaving his working role. That friendship gave Oliver intimate knowledge of the younger brother's anger, regrets, and fear of permanent separation. William remembered those happier occasions with sudden bitterness. He could still recall Grant calming Harry after tense family conversations, and protecting him when public pressure became unbearable. Now the same confidant stood inside a restricted palace corridor. The prince did not see an old friend. He saw proof that every unresolved wound between the brothers had returned at the worst possible moment. Harry paced beside a silent phone far from the palace. Oliver had confirmed his arrival through a brief private message, but nothing had followed. The Duke wanted William to hear what had been buried, yet he feared the future king would treat Grant's presence as an attack. Each passing minute made reconciliation feel less likely and betrayal more certain. Catherine found William alone in an adjoining room, gripping the back of a chair until his fingers turned pale. The Princess of Wales, the formal title given to the wife of the heir, approached carefully and asked what Oliver truly knew. William admitted that Grant understood enough about Harry's private grievances to destroy every calm argument prepared for the council. Catherine heard anger in his voice, but she also recognized grief. Oliver refused to answer the security officers waiting outside. Grant insisted he carried no documents, recording devices, or instructions from the press. He would speak only to William because the truth concerned two brothers, not the palace machine surrounding them. When the prince finally asked whether Harry had sent him, Oliver held his gaze and answered, "Not in the way you think." Those words pulled William toward an incident the family had tried to bury, one that had made this confrontation almost inevitable. The crisis outside the council chamber had not begun that morning. Its true origin lay in a private telephone call made during the previous winter, after a tense family gathering at Sandringham. Harry had asked for one assurance concerning his future access to the family, and William had refused to give it. Oliver Grant heard what followed. From that night forward, he carried a secret capable of turning an ordinary council meeting into a confrontation between blood, duty, and survival. Relations between the brothers had already become painfully formal. Their brief calls passed through private offices, while difficult subjects were postponed whenever advisors feared another argument. Sandringham, the monarch's private country residence in Norfolk, had once offered the family escape from public pressure. That winter, however, its walls held a memorial gathering filled with forced smiles, careful greetings, and emotions no one dared name. Harry waited until the gathering ended before calling William directly. The Duke asked for written confirmation that his children would always be welcomed at private royal residences and family occasions, whatever happened to his official position. His request mattered because palace access was no longer a simple family choice. Security approval, household authority, and royal responsibilities now stood between the younger brother and every place he had once called home. William listened, but he refused to promise anything outside established security procedures. The prince explained that access involving protected residences had to be reviewed before any written assurance could be issued. Harry heard something colder. He believed his brother was treating him and his children as risks rather than family. The Duke ended the call abruptly, leaving William staring at a silent phone and wondering how every attempt at caution had become another wound. Oliver received a recorded voice message from Harry less than an hour later. Grant heard the Duke admit that he regretted ending the call in anger and still wanted to speak with William without advisors controlling every sentence. Harry's voice softened when he recalled a childhood promise between the brothers. Palace walls would never be allowed to separate them. Oliver preserved that recording because its pain sounded sincere, not strategic. William never heard it. A private secretary, the senior aide responsible for managing confidential messages and official communication, reviewed the recording before it reached him. The official judged Harry's language too emotional and feared it would disrupt future negotiations. Without informing either brother, the secretary placed the message inside a restricted communications file, a protected archive used for sensitive material, and allowed silence to deliver its own cruel verdict. Oliver later discovered what had happened through a documented account created by a junior communications officer. Grant also learned that the same private secretary who buried Harry's recording may have authorized his mysterious access to the council corridor. Someone wanted William to discover the truth, but no one knew why. Armed with that knowledge, the prince could no longer remain behind guarded doors. William stepped into the corridor to confront the one man who knew what Harry had truly tried to say. The corridor fell silent when William finally opened the chamber door. Oliver Grant stood beneath a gilded portrait, watched by 2 security officers, but he did not step back. William approached without an aide and demanded a direct answer. Why was Harry's closest friend outside a confidential Crown Council meeting? Grant looked him in the eye and replied that someone inside the palace had invited him, not to spy on the council, but to expose what had been hidden from both brothers. William ordered everyone except one security officer to move back. The officer remained close enough to intervene, yet far enough to give the conversation privacy. What had begun as a possible security breach now became something painfully personal. 2 men standing between brothers who could no longer speak without suspicion. The prince wanted facts, but Oliver had arrived carrying years of emotion. Grant explained that an unsigned message had reached his private phone before dawn. It contained the council's meeting time, a temporary access code, and precise instructions to wait outside until William arrived. The code was a short security number, allowing a visitor through controlled palace checkpoints. Oliver admitted he had expected resistance, but he believed whoever sent the message wanted the future king to see him before the meeting began. William's restraint cracked. He accused Oliver of using Harry's pain to force his way into a protected royal space. Grant denied it, but the prince struck his palm against a corridor table when the winter telephone call was mentioned. "You do not get to turn my brother's anger into a weapon," he warned. Oliver answered that the Duke had never wanted a weapon. Harry had wanted an answer. Oliver told William that Harry felt abandoned, not dangerous. The Duke had attempted to reach his brother through private calls and recorded messages, yet every effort seemed to disappear inside palace offices. Grant said the silence had convinced Harry that advisors were no longer managing communication, they were controlling it. William rejected the accusation, but doubt entered his voice because the hidden recording had already proved that something had gone terribly wrong. Grant then repeated one sentence from Harry's withheld voice message. "No palace wall will ever be stronger than the promise we made." William froze. Those words belonged to a childhood agreement formed during a frightened night when the brothers had promised never to let royal life divide them. Oliver could not have invented that sentence. He could only have heard it from Harry. William demanded the complete recording. Grant removed his phone but paused before handing it over. Oliver revealed that the anonymous invitation had included one final instruction. He must arrive at the exact moment Sir Malcolm Vane, a senior council advisor, entered the building. Someone had planned the encounter with frightening precision. The confrontation proved Harry's message was real. Yet it exposed something even more dangerous. A person close to royal power had deliberately engineered William's discovery, and the future king was about to uncover why. William returned to the chamber with a different expression. The anger remained, but it was now sharpened by certainty. Around the polished table sat the people entrusted with protecting the monarchy. Yet one of them had intercepted a private appeal from his brother. As the prince walked behind the empty chairs, no official dared speak. Then he stopped beside Sir Malcolm Vane, the senior fictional advisor responsible for sensitive family communications, and placed Harry's unheard message before him. Sir Malcolm controlled an office that managed confidential contact involving senior royals. His staff weighed personal communication against security concerns, legal danger, and possible damage to the monarchy's reputation. Malcolm could not command William or Charles, but his influence remained enormous. He decided which messages reached them immediately, which required formal review, and which disappeared into restricted files where emotion could be buried beneath procedure. William placed Harry's recorded message on the table and asked one question. "Did you stop this from reaching me?" The advisor hesitated before admitting that he had withheld it. Malcolm claimed the Duke sounded distressed and feared that delivering the recording would trigger another damaging confrontation. The prince rejected that defense. Silence had not prevented conflict. It had allowed resentment to grow without challenge. Charles sat at the far end of the table and slowly removed his glasses. The king had believed Harry no longer wanted direct contact, yet the recording proved his younger son had tried to reach the family with regret rather than anger. Charles asked why he had never been informed. Malcolm answered that the message concerned William, but the monarch's sadness deepened. One official had made a choice that denied both a brother and a father the chance to respond. Sir Malcolm denied arranging Oliver Grant's visit. He insisted he had never invited Grant into the restricted corridor and would not risk exposing a council gathering. William requested the security log, a timed digital record showing which office created each visitor clearance. The record revealed that Oliver's pass originated shortly before dawn from a terminal assigned to Malcolm's outer office. Eleanor Shaw suddenly stepped forward, trembling so badly that her voice nearly failed. The junior courtier, a palace employee who supports senior members of the royal household, confessed that she had sent the anonymous invitation. Eleanor had discovered Harry's recording during an archive review and created a documented account tracing how Malcolm had withheld it. She feared the council was about to approve permanent restrictions using an incomplete story. William stared at Eleanor as the chamber waited for his decision. She had bypassed security and placed Oliver outside a confidential meeting, yet she had also exposed a truth powerful officials had concealed. Malcolm demanded her immediate suspension. Charles remained silent, forcing the future king to judge the difference between disobedience and courage. The hidden message had finally surfaced, but the crisis now threatened careers, family decisions, and William's authority. His next move would reveal whether the palace punished the breach or confronted the silence that caused it. By midday, the council chamber remained locked, its untouched water glasses and empty chairs becoming symbols of a monarchy stopped in its tracks. William had cancelled more than a meeting. He had disrupted a decision designed to shape Harry's future relationship with the crown. Staff hurried through side corridors. Security clearances were suspended, and every planned announcement was frozen. Yet the most devastating consequence unfolded in silence, when Charles finally listened to his younger son's forgotten voice. William suspended the entire Crown Council agenda and ordered an internal review of how private family communications were screened, stored, and delivered. The review was a formal palace investigation designed to establish who made each decision and whether royal authority had been misused. This mattered because the cancelled agenda included restrictions affecting Harry's access to residences, family gatherings, and future contact. Approving those measures without his withheld message would have turned an incomplete story into permanent policy. Oliver remained inside the palace voluntarily, while officials verified his invitation. A security clearance was the official permission allowing someone into a controlled royal area, and Grant's temporary pass had been created from Sir Malcolm's outer office. Investigators confirmed that Oliver never entered the council chamber, approached confidential files, or attempted to obtain protected information. He had followed Eleanor's instructions and waited only for William. Charles listened alone to Harry's recorded message. The Duke's voice carried regret as he spoke about the winter call, his children, and the childhood promise shared with William. When the recording ended, the king placed the device down and pressed his fingers against his eyes. Charles remained silent for nearly a minute. He had spent months believing his son had chosen distance, only to discover that palace silence had helped create it. Eleanor waited in a small office, expecting dismissal. Catherine entered without advisors, and found her struggling to control her fear. The princess told Eleanor that breaking security protocol carried serious consequences because one unauthorized action could endanger everyone inside a royal residence. Yet Catherine also acknowledged that hiding a son's attempt to reach his family had caused another kind of harm. Eleanor had broken a rule, but she had exposed a deeper failure. William ordered Sir Malcolm removed from communication duties pending the review. The prince made clear that no advisor could privately decide which emotions were too uncomfortable for the royal family to hear. Malcolm protested that he had protected the institution. William answered that protection without truth had become control, and the senior official finally understood that his quiet authority was gone. William then approached Oliver with one decisive question. Would Harry answer if his brother called without secretaries, prepared statements, or lawyers? Grant said the Duke had been waiting for exactly that call. But Oliver offered one warning. Reconciliation would fail unless William listened without defending the palace first. The prince had reclaimed control of the council. Restoring trust, however, required something far harder, facing Harry as a brother instead of managing him as a royal problem. That evening, William entered a private sitting room and closed the door behind him. There were no advisors, no official notes, and no carefully drafted language waiting on the table. Only Catherine remained long enough to place a hand on his shoulder before leaving him alone. William looked at Harry's number for several seconds, then pressed the call button. Across the distance, his brother answered after the first ring, but neither man initially knew how to begin. Catherine paused at the doorway before quietly telling the prince to speak as a brother, not as the future king. Her words mattered because the hidden recording had proved that formal communication was no longer protecting the family. It was deepening the separation. Advisors, private secretaries, and legal representatives had become institutional buffers, people and procedures placed between the brothers to control risk. But those barriers had also controlled every emotion. Harry took the call alone, after asking Meghan for privacy. The Duchess understood that her presence might make William more guarded, so she stepped away and promised not to interrupt. Meghan knew the conversation could reopen old wounds, yet she also recognized that silence had already caused greater damage. For once, neither household would shape what the brothers were permitted to say. William finally admitted that he believed Harry had stopped trying to reach him personally. During the private call, the prince confessed that every unanswered month had hardened his assumptions. The Duke responded that repeated silence had convinced him his brother had chosen the crown over their relationship. Harry had not expected immediate agreement. He had only wanted proof that his words could still reach William without being judged by someone else first. Their voices tightened when the Sandringham call returned to the conversation. William explained that his refusal had concerned security rules governing access to protected royal residences. He had feared making a promise that officials could not safely honor. Harry answered that he had heard something entirely different, a rejection of his children. The Duke's pain was not about buildings. It was about whether his family still belonged anywhere within William's future. William then made one firm promise. No decision concerning Harry's private family contact would be approved until the younger brother received a fair chance to speak directly and understand every condition involved. The future king could not erase the past, but he could stop officials from turning unheard emotions into permanent restrictions. Harry also acknowledged that Oliver had acted without instructions to disrupt the council. Grant had made his own choice after hearing months of despair, yet the Duke accepted responsibility for making Oliver believe dramatic intervention was necessary. William did not forgive the breach, but he finally understood its cause. The brothers agreed on one concrete step. The council would reconvene only after they held a private family conversation without advisors. Their agreement felt fragile, but it was real. And within hours, that private decision would collide with a public storm, forming beyond the palace gates. By sunrise, the cancelled meeting had escaped the palace walls. Broadcasters stood out St. James's Palace. Newspapers rushed out special editions, and royal commentators argued over whether William had prevented a security breach or exposed a deeper failure of trust. Yet one image dominated every screen: a long council table prepared for power, surrounded by empty chairs. It captured the entire crisis without showing a single face. A monarchy interrupted because one family message had never reached its destination. The palace issued a documented statement confirming that William had postponed the Crown Council meeting after an unauthorized visitor clearance incident. Visitor clearance meant official permission to enter a controlled palace area, and Oliver's pass was now under investigation. Officials refused to reveal the suspended agenda because it contained private security and family decisions. That silence protected sensitive information, but it also allowed public suspicion to spread. Debate divided the country. Some commentators argued that Grant's presence proved royal security had become dangerously weak. Others saw something more human: a family whose personal words had become trapped inside formal systems designed to protect it. The cancelled meeting mattered because William was expected to represent stability. Instead, the future king had stopped the machinery of power after discovering that its decisions were based on silence. Harry watched the coverage from home and feared Oliver would be portrayed as an intruder. The Duke knew Grant had crossed an official boundary, yet he also knew his friend had never entered the protected chamber or sought confidential material. Harry sent William a private message asking him to prevent Oliver from becoming the public villain for a failure created inside the palace. William responded through a revised official statement. The prince instructed the household to confirm that Grant had taken nothing, threatened no one, and remained cooperative throughout the review. That correction did not erase the breach, but it protected Oliver from the darkest accusations. For the first time, Harry saw his brother using royal authority to defend the full truth rather than the easiest version. Eleanor faced a different storm. She watched commentators condemn an unnamed employee who had bypassed procedure and endangered the council. Catherine found her shaken and privately reminded her that the review would examine motive as well as conduct. The princess offered no promise of protection, but she assured Eleanor that one broken rule would be judged beside the concealed message that drove her to break it. A fictional morning newspaper captured the crisis with the headline, "The Door William Would Not Open," above a photograph of St. James's Palace. Near the gates, a woman placed 2 white roses beneath a handwritten card reading, "Brothers Before Barriers." The quiet gesture became the defining public response, turning political outrage into reflection. William understood the meaning immediately. The cancellation could be remembered as chaos, or as the moment royal leadership changed. When he returned to the council table, the future king carried no anger toward the man outside the door, only a verdict about the system that had kept 2 brothers apart. 3 days after the corridor confrontation, William walked back into the Crown Council chamber. The same chairs had been arranged, the same folders waited beneath the lights, but the purpose of the gathering had changed. He would not permit officials to decide Harry's private family future using withheld messages or incomplete accounts. William opened the meeting with a firm declaration. Royal duty might require boundaries, but it could never justify turning silence into policy or pain into evidence. Charles listened as the prince introduced a new communication rule. Every sensitive family message would be logged transparently and reviewed by at least 2 authorized officials before being delayed or restricted. The log would provide a clear record of who received a message, who reviewed it, and what decision followed. The king supported the change because one advisor's private judgment had denied both brothers a fair chance to speak. William then removed the original decisions about Harry from the agenda. The Duke's access to private residences, security arrangements, and participation in family gatherings would remain unchanged until direct discussions concluded. This mattered because those decisions affected more than royal privilege. They determined whether Harry and his children could still enter family spaces without every visit becoming a public or institutional battle. Sir Malcolm Vane submitted his resignation from the communications office. Malcolm admitted, through a documented statement, that his attempt to prevent conflict had deepened the brothers' separation. William accepted the resignation without satisfaction. The future king understood that fear had shaped the advisor's choices, but good intentions could not excuse hiding a son's voice from his father and brother. Eleanor Shaw received a formal warning for bypassing security procedure, yet she kept her position. Eleanor accepted the punishment because her invitation to Oliver had created a genuine security risk. Charles later thanked her privately for ensuring that he finally heard Harry's recording. The monarch did not excuse her breach, but he acknowledged the painful truth she had forced the family to confront. Oliver Grant was formally cleared of attempting to enter or compromise the council meeting. Investigators confirmed that Oliver had taken no protected information and had cooperated throughout the review. Before leaving, Grant approached William and offered his hand. The prince accepted it. Their handshake did not erase the confrontation, but it recognized that both men had acted from concern for Harry. William sent the revised council decision to his brother through a direct private message. Harry answered with 2 words, "I understand." The Duke did not claim that every wound had healed, and the future king offered no false promise of instant reconciliation. Yet the machinery that had kept them apart was finally broken. Canceling the meeting had not weakened William's authority. It defined it. He stopped a powerful institution when he discovered that its decisions rested on concealed truth. The door that seemed to threaten the monarchy ultimately reopened a path between 2 brothers, proving that loyalty to the crown means little without courage, fairness, and family. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.